What's up, everybody? This is Mind Your Money with MissBeHelpful, a show that highlights people and stories that will inspire you to get your money right. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Akeiva. She is one of the two hosts of a YouTube channel called The Bemused. But before we jump into talk about Akeiva and her story, this week's episode is sponsored by Snowball Wealth. Snowball Wealth really just gives you tips and resources for your student loans. All right, welcome. So everybody who is listening and watching today, we have the host and actually star to one of the two stars of the Bemused, which is a YouTube channel that I recently found and then connected with you on Instagram. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody out there watching and listening?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Akeiva Thomas. And as Jenny said, I run the YouTube channel, The Bemused, along with my fiance, Mishak. And what we're focused on is basically anything having to do with personal finance for young adults just like us. So anything from student loans to taxes to budgeting, anything and everything, money and relationships. We talk about all of that stuff.
Well, first of all, congratulations, because you're recently engaged. I saw that on Instagram. I was like, oh, you guys got engaged. So that's really sweet that not only are you talking about your personal finance journey personally, right, with student loans and stuff, but also that you get to do it with your partner and that you guys get to do it together. That's just so sweet. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about the Bemused and all the stuff that you guys are doing together. But first, I just want to start with a really fun question, which is if you had to go back in time and find a purchase that you made that was way too expensive, and to this day you still regret making that purchase, what would that thing be?
Hands down, my car. So yeah, this is a whole story. We did a whole video on it as well. All the mistakes that I made when I purchased my car. But essentially, I purchased my first car, the car that I still have, back in August of 2016. And at that time, it was like going into my senior year of college, still not very established and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely paid more for the car than I probably should have. So I made a lot of mistakes in that process. I didn't do a lot of research. I did not negotiate the price. The interest rate that I ended up getting for my car note was like super duper expensive. So thankfully, I've now paid that car off. I paid the car off in December 2019, but still, it's just like one of those things. It's like, I could have like, thank you. Yeah, with hindsight, it's like, hindsight's 2020.
That's right. We listen, we live and we learn. I made so many mistakes with things that that's why I always like to ask that question because, yes, you're on here as a financial influencer who obviously has her stuff together. You and your fiance both are giving really great advice to young people. But there was a time where I'm sure that was not the case. And so I always like to start off with that to just show people out there listening that, as an inspiring point, but also as like hey, ain't nobody perfect.
Exactly.
We don't have everything figured out. We made mistakes and that's how we learned. And that's why we're here where we are today. But, just as a way to encourage people that, we all make financial mistakes. Okay.
Yes, for sure.
We're human. That's right. So on the flip side, on the opposite side of that, what was something that you bought that was super expensive that you're actually glad that you made that purchase and you're proud of it? And to this day, you would buy it again if you had the chance to make the decision again.
So this might surprise some people, but actually my most expensive purchase, I think, hands down for most people outside of a house maybe is going to college and all the debt that's associated with going to college, paying for my degrees essentially. So yeah, like I complain a lot about student loan debt. Of course, I have so many videos on how to manage student loan debt, but at the end of the day, like I don't regret that decision going to college and even taking out the debt that I needed to take out in order to go to college. So I definitely don't regret that at all. I mean, going to college has presented so many opportunities and experiences and like personal growth and spiritual growth and just things that I would not have had if I had stayed home in New York. So going away to college and having that experience, I think like despite the $80,000 of debt that it put me in, I would not regret it for the world.
I hear that though. I feel like I also really enjoyed college. And I feel like even now I think back, I got very lucky because I got a full ride, but I got into a lot of credit card debt while I was in college because I was trying so hard to keep up. And even like people ask me all the time, like, oh, do you regret it? If you could go back, would you not do it? And it's like, well, it's hard for me to say I regret it because it wouldn't have made me the person that I am today. Like it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, who knows what I would have done otherwise. Okay, so tell us a little bit about college. Tell us about where you went to school, what you study, and what was college like for you leaving from New York and going off to a campus?
Yeah, so I went for undergrad. I went to school out in the Maryland, DC area, and I loved it. I definitely loved it. I definitely wanted to be someplace where I wasn't too far from home. So like it was like maybe a 4-hour drive away from home, but far enough where I can kind of have my own distance and kind of have the opportunity and space to be myself.
Yeah.
So college was definitely a good experience for me. It was definitely a very humbling experience. I learned a lot about finances, about financial aid, and like all the stuff that I did not know before that my parents didn't know. And I guess we can talk about that more too in terms of, upbringing and decision making.
Yes.
But yeah, I wouldn't regret it for the world. I ended up studying finance in college. I also
Nice.
double majored in accounting. I added that major on later on as well. So that kind of set a good foundation for the business knowledge and different things like that. But of course, even with the finance degree, they don't really talk about personal finance as much. So that's a core difference, is that we
Can
don't really
I
talk about
get
personal
some
finance.
snaps? Say it again for the people in the
Yes,
back.
yes,
You
a
can
finance.
study finance, you can study business, you can study, but you will not get personal finances. You will
Yeah.
not get how to manage your paycheck when you get your
hmm
money, what to do with that money. It's very
Yeah.
different.
Very, very different. And that's why, like, along the course of undergrad, I realized that this is something I want to make a career out of. Like this, I want to
Yeah.
help other people with their money. And so from that point on, I, learned about the field of financial planning and financial advising, and I decided I want to be a financial planner. So
That's
once I
awesome.
graduated, I went on to grad school, got a master's degree in financial planning specifically, and went on to get my CFP certification. And like now I work, full time. That's my 9 to 5, is working as a financial planner for ultra high net worth families. So
That's
it's just
awesome.
something that, really I took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
And I love it. I really do love what I do.
That's so cool. So you're kind of like on the inside getting to see how
hmm
super, super like uber rich people use their money.
Yes.
So what are
Yes.
some things that you have taken from that? Like what are some things that either you've noticed or that you've learned, or some interesting things that maybe surprised you from like, kind of like looking under the hood of the money of
hmm
rich people? Like what has that been like?
Yeah, I think people have a lot of stereotypes when it comes to people who have a lot of wealth. Like my
Good
typical
point.
client is, net worth of like 100 million. Like so when you get up to like those big clients, like sometimes the numbers, like now I'm kind of immune to it, but before it was like these are like really big numbers, and you have these
Yeah.
stereotypes of what rich people do and what wealthy people are like, but really they're just like a lot of people. They have the same concerns, the same worries, the same,
Right.
the way how everybody's freaking out about the economy and the stock market, they are too. Obviously they have family, they
They
have the
are
same
too. Right.
concerns about making sure that they're raising their kids right and teaching them the right lessons about money. So
Yeah.
really the biggest thing was just learning that people are human at the end of the day. We all have the same common concerns and worries and things like that. So it's just a matter of the magnitude of wealth.
Yeah.
Of course, there's different opportunities that presents when you have larger sums of wealth. But really at the core of
Yeah.
it, people are the same. So it's
That's
really good.
awesome. I love that point. That's so true, because a lot
Yeah.
of times we tend to just like, we just tend to like make assumptions and like judge other people. Oh, you got all this
hmm
money, you must not have no problems. Or,
Yeah.
oh, you have all this money, you must be a jerk. You must be like, you must not care about others because all you have is all this money. And it's not true. People are people. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, I personally have come to believe, especially as I started to like meet and work with closely more wealthy people that are way wealthier
hmm
than I ever would have imagined that I could be. I started learning from them that like, listen, money doesn't really change you.
Right.
Money just makes you more of who you are.
Yes.
So if you were a jerk from when you were young, and you're just a jerk type of personality, and you're just a rude person, you don't really care about others, you're not really empathetic, having more money is only going to draw those negative
Exactly.
characteristics out. But if you're a very kind person and you mean well, and you're well intentioned, and you're a positive
hmm
spirit, like you're gonna do all the positive things with your money. When you get more money, it just makes you more of who you are.
Yes,
So
for sure.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit back before college. You
Mhm.
said you grew up in New York. Tell us about growing up. What was it like? You said that your parents didn't know a lot about like FAFSA and college and all that. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about growing up, your parents. What was your upbringing like?
Yeah. So as a lot of people grew up in a family of immigrants, and my parents are immigrants. They're,
Hmm.
new to this country. They were new to this country. And growing up, we really didn't talk about money at all. Like a
Hmm.
lot of families, I
That's
had
right.
no idea what anything was. We just, those conversations just didn't happen. And
Right.
so when I got older, and it was time to go to college and like filling out the FAFSA and doing all these forms, like they couldn't help me because they hadn't gone through it themselves. And so it
Yeah.
was really up to me to figure out. And really, that's when I realized how much I did not know going through that process. And it's just like,
Right.
this is, something has got to change. Like,
Yeah.
people have got to do better. And so that was really the kind of defining moment for me when it
Mm-hmm.
really turned my attention toward learning more about money and learning more about personal finance and becoming interested in it. Just realizing
Yeah.
how much I didn't know, and I didn't like that feeling of not knowing things. I'm used to knowing things growing up. I was like, I'm a pretty
Yeah.
smart person. I should
Yeah.
know how to do this, and this is the
That's
feeling.
right.
Right? So I really just kind of took with it and ran with it. And so
Yeah.
now I'm in a position where I'm able to help my parents, help the people around me, educate them on the things that they might not know about, so that
Yeah.
they can build a better future for themselves and for their kids and their grandkids. And that's really like the
Mhm.
most rewarding part about going into this field, is just
Mhm.
being able to help everybody else around you thrive. Because that's one thing I was tired of seeing. It just seemed like everybody around me was struggling,
Yep.
and I wanted to be part of the solution. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that
Yeah.
going down this path has helped me to be in that position.
Yeah. I love that. So where did your parents immigrate from when they came to New York?
So they're from Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
from the Caribbean, yeah.
Awesome. Trinity people. So I grew up in
Yes.
Bushwick, and like the number one thing about Bushwick that people don't realize, because right now it's very gentrified and it's all like artsy
For
fartsy,
sure.
all
Yes.
hipster. But before all that, when I grew up in Bushwick in the 90s, it was just Dominican, Puerto Rican, Jamaican, Trinidadians. It was just so
Yeah.
Caribbean. It was like heavy Caribbean, West Indian. And
Hmm.
it's just funny how quickly like that. I don't know if if you
So
experienced that
yeah.
too, but how quickly it changed.
Yes, I grew up in Crown Heights. It's the same thing. Like going back
Oh,
to those
yes.
neighborhoods now, it's like, whoa, like what happened
Yeah.
here? It looks
Yeah,
so
exactly.
different.
That is so
Yeah.
true. It's scary, but I mean, that's New York, right? Like it's always
Hmm.
changing. It's also like the economics of it, right? All of a sudden they decided real estate is more valuable in these neighborhoods, and all of a sudden like landlords are raising their rent. Like you start to just see that the ripple effect that it has on our people. It's actually super sad. Like I remember when I first came back from college and I saw how the neighborhood changed. I felt like I was actually mad at first to it, and now I've wrap my brain around what's actually happening and I understand it
Hmm.
more. That doesn't mean it doesn't make me mad, but at least I understand what's happening. Because before I really didn't understand. I just thought, oh my goodness, this is horrible, and now I actually understand the economics of it, the way that, communities change. And
Yeah.
cool. So tell us a little bit about starting the Bemused, because I know it's rooted a lot in college, in paying back college, paying student loans, understanding FAFSA. A lot of your most popular videos are about that. Actually, your number one most watched video, which has tens of thousands of views, is about federal student loans and the most strategic way to tackle federal student loans. So what made you kind of decide to, instead of just working with your fiance on your own personal finances and getting yourselves out of student loan debt, why take to a public platform and start talking about it publicly? What inspired you guys to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you had told me even a year before I started the channel that I was going to be starting a YouTube channel, I'd have been like, you're crazy. That is not something that I do. That just did not seem like it sat well with me. But
Mm,
it was multiple reasons why we ended up starting the brand. So the brand, it's a financial literacy brand, but of course at the core is our YouTube channel. That is where we put out our main content about personal finance. And so one, it was a challenge to myself because I struggled a lot and still do with social anxiety. And I was like, maybe this is something that will push me out of my comfort zone. It's really also a personal challenge as well.
yeah.
And so it's been really helpful to me in that way to kind of really put myself out there and help combat that. And then also it's just like, I knew that I had a knowledge base and a unique perspective that a lot of people that I saw on YouTube, didn't have. And also we're putting it in a way that is really relatable. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, so it's like I knew I could use YouTube to reach the people that I was really passionate about reaching, people like me, young adults,
Yep.
oftentimes in part of minority groups.
Yep.
That's really important to me. And so I knew YouTube was the platform. It was also going to be able to challenge me and things like that. And also think that representation matters. Like
Yeah.
on YouTube, it's like, yeah, it can be such like a male dominated space at times. And definitely not a lot of minorities out there talking about personal finance in this
That's right.
way, also from the perspective of being in the field as a financial planner, not just relying on personal experience, but also having formal training and
Yep.
things like that that they could bring to the table. So I just thought that, we had a unique perspective to share, and also
Mhm.
making it relatable, because that was really important. Is we're very transparent. That's one of our core values, is transparency.
Yeah.
We share all about our personal finances. We do net worth updates. We do budgets. You guys, basically all of my income and my assets, liabilities, all that's public information at this point. So we wanted to make it relatable. We have student loan debt just like you.
Yeah.
We have our struggles. We talk about relationship conflict when it comes to money. We talk about all the things that everybody goes through. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
all of that just in combination really is what makes our channel what it is, and why we really wanted to share that with other people. Because like I said, representation matters. Even as a financial professional, as a certified financial planner, which there aren't that many that I've seen on YouTube, period, especially financial planners of color, because there just aren't that many of us. I think when the statistics are about, I think out of like the 85,000 certified financial planners that are in the country, only like 23% are women, only about 5% are under the age of 30, and only 3.5% are Black or Latinx. Like that's combined 3.5%. So there aren't that many of us. So to be, it's crazy. And so to be like a 22-year-old Black female CFP on this platform, I just think that it was that I should use the voice that I have, because there aren't that many to offer, to be helpful to people in that way. And so I just find it like just really rewarding to be a part of this.
That is so dope. Honestly, I mean, first of all, I should start by saying I had no idea. I could never tell from watching you that you have social anxiety. So good job on like putting yourself out there and like just, being natural. Because I feel like I never would have got that sense. Like, I mean, obviously you guys are like a little more reserved and you guys are a little more chill. There's nothing about your channel that's like gimmicky and jumpy and like crazy, right? But at the same time, even though you guys are chill, like I don't really get that sense. So, I mean, nice job to you guys for putting yourselves in a position where you put yourself outside of your comfort zone and like force yourself to just really put yourself out there, because I think that pays off, especially as you get a little older and you start to network more and you start to realize like, you are your network. You be able to put yourself out there and be comfortable talking to people from all walks of life. So
for sure. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. It's good. I look back at like our early videos where we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of our channel, April 3rd. And I look back at our old videos. I'm like, oh, it's so cringy, but it's like so good to see how far you've come. I know you still have so much more progress to make too. So I really appreciate you saying that.
I totally, that resonates with me so much, because sometimes I go back and watch my older videos, not even just like I cringe because of like how I was, because I was like still learning. But also how I was editing them. Like every 5 seconds, I was like, cut. Like, I was like, can you just let yourself play for 10 seconds without making a cut or an edit? Like, what is going on? Man. You get more confidence as you do it more and more,
Yes, for sure.
That's awesome. All right, cool. So tell us a little bit about that video, which is your most popular video. What are like 2 or 3 tips that anybody could take from that video, like the key points about the most strategic way that you can tackle your student loans, regardless of how much you have? If you have federal student loan debt, like these are the maybe 2 things that you have got to know that you're probably not doing that could make a big difference.
Yeah, so I think the 2 biggest things, and the things that come up most like in the comments of that video, were the simple things. Like the one thing that I thought most people knew, but apparently they didn't, was the fact that when you put auto pay, like auto debit on your federal student loans, you get that 0.25% interest reduction. That was like, I thought, everybody knew that, but it was really clear to me afterward that there were so many people commenting saying they had no idea. And so that's just like such an easy way, like such low hanging fruit in order to, reduce your interest rate and therefore reduce how much you have to pay, in the long run in your student loan.
You save money over time, because 0.25 might not sound like a lot, but like, first of all, let's be real, that's more than a lot of people's savings accounts are giving them. And 2, when you compound that over the 10, 15 years that you're making payments, a big difference.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes a really big difference. So that was one thing that, surprised me, that it's just really easy for people to implement. And the second thing that was really like the core thing that I felt like nobody was really saying when it came to debt payoff was the fact that you want to try to get your payments to be as low as possible. A lot of people default to like, the 10-year standard. They think that's going to be the best way, or, other people who are in income-driven repayment plans or whatever plan they kind of just put themselves into. But the important part is really just making sure your payments are as low as they can be. The good thing about this current environment is that now everybody's payments are going to zero. So that's like an ideal environment to kind of tackle the loans. And that way you have more money to tackle the loans that have the higher interest rate debt that you really want to tackle first, because that's the most efficient way of paying it off, if you're using the debt avalanche method, which is the method I talk about and recommend like in that video. So those are kind of like the 2 like power points in that video. And things that people don't really think about. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Because I feel like also there's this big thing in like the debt-free community about the snowball method, and a lot of people like to apply that. But like me personally, I am all team avalanche. I've been from day one saying that, yes, there is an emotional aspect to it, but at the end of the day, unless you owe like millions of dollars in debt, the math matters, because we're talking about thousands of dollars that you could save if you're talking about student loan versus credit card interest, or a personal loan versus, the worst thing of all, which is going to a payday loan, because those payday loans like legally could charge you 300, 400%. Those are the worst things in the world. So I mean, I really do think people need to understand that money is math. At the end of the day, it is numbers. Whether you like to admit it or not, your emotions are involved. But when you sit down and look at how much you could save, hopefully that is enough to make your emotions realize that you need to get on this avalanche plan and smash this debt. Like, you know what I mean?
For sure. The math is important. And that's what, the strategy that I used where, I talked about my car earlier. That was my highest interest rate debt. It was like almost 8%. That was higher than any of my student loans. And so what I really needed to do was to get my student loans as low as possible, so I could put as much money toward my, my car note as possible, like in that situation. And so I definitely am motivated by the numbers, but that's just, that's me. So I definitely don't downplay, the snowball method or any other methods at all, because I understand everybody's different. Everybody's motivated by different things. People's emotions are different. And so if honestly, it's like at a certain point, it's just like, you have to do what's going to motivate you to pay it off. Makes no sense trying to force the avalanche method on you if that's not going to motivate you to pay it off. At the end of the day, as long as you're paying.
Right. If you're going to quit along the way because you're not feeling like it's working, even if it actually is working, if you don't feel like it is, your mind can play tricks on you. So I mean, I definitely hear that point. People just got to do what makes sense for them, what's going to work for you and your personal preferences and your emotions and your personality. That's very true. I'm very numbers driven, math driven, like at the end of the day. And honestly, this came from, I learned the hard way, because you say 8% was your highest. And it's funny because I was like, woo, that's high for a car loan. But my credit cards were 3 times that. My credit cards, and I had like $20,000 of credit cards. It was 20-something%. That was crazy to me. Like, it makes so much sense. Like, make the minimum as low as possible, and every extra dollar you have, smash that 27% credit card first, because that's growing at the fastest rate, like, of growth, and you're not going to be able to keep up. It's like, you got to smash that first. So, I mean, for me, the credit card stuff like taught me to be numbers focused and number driven. But I think a lot of what you're saying too makes so much sense for people to just figure out what is it that's going to work for you and just going to get you to the finish line.
And also not debt shaming either, because I do have a lot of people also who come in as bullies in the comments, like, no, the debt snowball over everything, and don't really understand why it is. They kind of follow people's advice blindly and not really understanding, why there isn't necessarily a right or wrong. It's more so what works for each person. So also, I see a lot of that debt shaming and things like that, on YouTube. And so that's something that I definitely, want to be mindful of and encourage people not to do. Everybody's personal finance journey is just that personal, and, people are going to have to do it right for them.
Exactly.
So,
Yep, 100%. I totally agree. It is so personal. You just got to figure out what's going to work for you, what's going to help you to stay motivated and to stick to it. Because the worst thing in the world is that you start and then you just stop. And
that's what we don't want.
Cool. So, okay, I really like to do this really fun thing where I ask you to give us a quote that you would like to put on a dollar bill. So this is like, imagine everybody is walking around with a dollar bill in their hand. They're making purchases. They're giving money to their kids. And what would the dollar bill say if you could change the United States of America on there and replace it with your motto, your message, or your slogan that you want them to see?
So actually, I would put a Bible verse. There is this one Bible verse that I love that I actually put on like my graduation cap when I was graduating from college. And the gist of it is basically saying that, our sufficiency is of God, like my sufficiency is of God. That's in 2 Corinthians 3:5. And really what that tells me, at least, like at the core of everything I do is about stewardship. It's about my money management is not just about me, especially as a Christian. It's not about me. It's remembering, one, that God is in control and of everything that I do, of anything that happens to me, of everything that happens to me. And second of all, is that, like I said, money management is not just about me. It's not about me growing my wealth. It's not about me. It's about how can I use this money as a tool to improve other people's lives, because that's really what your job is as a Christian. It's not just, to think about yourself, to think about other people. And also, how can I use this money to fulfill, like the plan that he has for my life. So that's what I would put on, my dollar bill, because I think that it just means so much to me in that sense.
At the end of the day, you have to know what the purpose is, the passion behind the money. It can't just be the dollar signs. That's not what it's about. So I love that. Cool. So tell people where they can find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to hit you up, if they want to follow your content, where can they find you at?
So you guys can find us on YouTube at The Bemused. That's youtube.com/The Bemused. That's B as in boy, E, M as in Mary, U-S-E-D, The Bemused.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Akeiva, for taking time to chat with me today. This was so awesome. I had a great time just learning more about you and your story, and keep doing what you're doing, because you guys are just doing some fabulous work. I know your channel is going to blow up, and I'm going to be like, I talked to her when she only had 3,000 subs.
Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome, love. Have a good one.
You too.
This week's episode is sponsored by snowballwealth.com. Snowball Wealth is an awesome website because it allows you to get all of the tools and tips that you need to tackle your student loan debt. And that way you can start saving and start investing and making room for other things that are also financial goals that you have in your budget, and not just feel overwhelmed by your student debt situation. It doesn't just try to generalize student loans for people. It doesn't just compare a bunch of options that you have. It actually focuses on personal finance education first. So really giving you that financial education you need to understand your loans, to understand what the heck is going on with your student loans, and then also to personalize the plan and personalize the information that you're getting, the analysis of your accounts to you and your situation. And so really focusing on that piece, which I think is really awesome. I think it's different because it's helping you to not just make a decision, but to make the most informed decision that you can make. And everybody out there who knows me and listens to my show, you know how I'm obsessed with informing people, educating people, empowering you so that you can make the best money decision for you in your situation. So if you have student loans, you can head on over and sign up at snowballwealth.com. If you like this video, which I'm sure you did because the video was the bomb, then you're going to want to watch all the other episodes of the Mind Your Money with MissBeHelpful podcast. And they're all right here in this playlist. So click the playlist to watch those episodes. And if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Click the subscribe button right now so you can get videos every single week, and to join Team Be Helpful right here. That's all I have for you guys. Till next time, peace.